Hello everyone, I'm Lady Solavine and welcome to my realm of purpose. Today I'm just going to go over the gameplay reveal, but what I'm going to focus on is mostly going to be the lore and story, and, well, a bit of speculation as well. So I won't really be focusing so much on the gameplay elements or anything like that. It's not really my area of expertise and I don't want to be spouting stuff I don't actually quite understand. Personally, I'm just here for the story. So I want to say, first and foremost, that my favourite part of the reveal was the last parts with Solas and the ritual and the gods. That part was easily the best part for me. So I will be focusing in on that for a good bit later on in the video. So I looked it over and it seems that the gameplay reveal showed about 15 minutes of cutscenes, and only around 5 minutes of combat. Of course, walking and running around areas intermingles dialogue and story with gameplay, so that ratio does vary, but there were a lot of cutscenes, way more than I was anticipating, which I'm grateful for as someone who loves story, lore and all that, but that was a lot of story they showed. Our starting location for this is Minrathous. As we exit the bar, we can see the floating circle of Magi, which was once the temple of the old god Razikale, and he is the god of mystery, who is one of 2 old gods yet to be awoken by Darkspawn as an archdemon. So, don't know if that could mean something, but that's that. And then there is this I want to address.
You still think you can talk him down before he starts his big ritual? Are they after us? Is it because of the bar?
Word travels fast in Minrathous.
Where's Nevgalis? Wasn't she at the meeting point?
The Venatori got to her first. They grabbed her before we arrived and paid off the bar owner to keep it quiet.
Tori took Nev to Dumont Plaza. Can you get us there, Harding?
Rook, you're with the Shadow Dragons. I figured you'd know Minrathous better than I do.
From these, we can infer that the 3 already know each other previously, as they just all seem to be on the same page. Even though Harding was nowhere near the bar the pair exited, presumably the bar from the teaser trailer just passed, though I imagine the trailer plays out differently to how the pair meet Rook in the game. In fact, I'm willing to bet Harding and Varric met Rook outside of Minrathous, with what this tweet implies. So, all 3 of the games have a prologue of sorts. Of course they vary in all 3 games, but there's always a part before the inciting incident, before your character is recruited to a cause that prompts the rest of the story. So I'll bet that we have a cutscene with Rook, in which they are caught up in something involving Varric and Harding, where we'll be introduced to the dialogue wheel to start with, but no combat. Since this reveal has us starting at level 1, I assume no combat has happened up until this point. We might have found a couple of codex entries that give you very minor XP, but I think for the most part, no combat has happened. So it'll be kind of like an Inquisition, how we had character creator, then being chased in the Fade, then interrogated, then the reveal of the breach, and travelling to the bridge where you get Cutlass, and then gameplay. That was all cutscenes for a solid 10-15 minutes before you got to play the game, so I reckon something like that's gonna happen here. Though perhaps we'll get to walk around and talk to people, instead of, being paraded for cutscenes, but nothing that would garner XP is what I want to get across. I do want to give a brief talk about the character creator. Over on Twitter I discovered a lot, and I thought it was definitely worth sharing because it was I really liked the information that I got. So I would just want to say a thank you to Shinobi602, who has compiled all of this information into a neat little tweet. That's where I'm pulling some of this information from. Well, I mean, all of it, but I've seen some of the things elsewhere as well. So, you can play as a human, elf, dwarf, or kunari. In the character creator, there's adjustable lighting, so you can see your character in different lights, so that you know that they look good in different lightings. The character creator has 5 categories: lineage, appearance, class, faction, and playstyle. I don't know what's in those, but that's just what's there. There are 6 factions or backstories to choose from. the Antivan Crows, the Grey Wardens, the Shadow Dragons, the Veil Jumpers, the Lords of Fortune, and the Mournwatch. Each will offer unique dialogue from Rook, as well as from other characters, namely the Companions, as 6 of them are members of each of those factions, excluding Harding, who is, I believe, technically still Inquisition faction. Each faction also offers 3 distinct buffs. It's not just dialogue changes. It's not just a change in dialogue. The Inquisitor is confirmed to be returning in the Veilguard. During the character creator, you can customize your Inquisitor. Kind of like in Mass Effect Andromeda, you can customize your twin. You can also adjust your character's body size and shape. There's dozens of hairstyles. And from what we see in this reveal, the hair physics look amazing, and I'm really hoping for some long hair options. As someone who typically plays female characters, I want long hair options. And there are tarot cards that you'll go through in the character creation process that will let you choose from past games some key decisions that will impact the Veilguard. And that is all I have on the character creation. There's a lot more in that tweet, so I'll put a link to it in the description. So after Solas starts performing the ritual, with the way some things were worded by Varric, Harding and Rook, it just feels like they knew in advance that the ritual was going to happen. Perhaps not at this exact moment, but they seemed unsurprised when things finally kicked off. There just wasn't any surprise by Varric or Harding at all at the timing of it, which makes me think that in some scene before exiting the bar, they find out that Solas's plans after so many years is finally kicking off, which is why they're trying to go find Nev so quickly, because they need to find him now, is what I'm thinking. This is really interesting because it's been about a decade since the events of Inquisition's concluding Trespasser DLC, which was set in 944 Dragon, I believe. And in the short story The Flame Eternal, which features a younger Emmerich, one of the new companions, it states, 30 years ago in 922 Dragon, indicating the present day is at least the year 952 Dragon. There may actually be something somewhere that gives an exact date for this game's starting events, but 952 Dragon is the closest I could find so far, so it is at least that date. It's been at least 10 years since the last game. I very quickly want to point out how interesting it is to experience Minrathous, be struck by the chaos of the Veil coming down, with the demons running chaotically through the streets, picking off people you can't help, enemy or civilian. The structures around you being decimated. I love those little details and thought they deserved highlighting, especially as the fiery demons just tackle and drag people off of ledges. Additionally, it appears the demons have gone through a redesign, and I actually really like it. I think it gives them more of a solid but still otherworldly feel that the other games haven't quite captured. They always felt very purely physical but odd looking, if that makes sense. In this they do feel quite unnatural, otherworldly, but still physical. Like they're not meant to be here, and their physical appearance, it represents that. It truly does feel like it in this game. They just feel very animate and unpredictable and alive, compared to the previous games where they were just kind of annoying enemies, with a few exceptions of like minor boss fights and whatnot, but yeah, I just thought that was worth mentioning. In regards to the dialogue wheel, I want to see more of it, but it looks like a different skinned version of the one in Inquisition and Dragon Age 2. And it seems you can typically pick from diplomatic and or sympathetic, lighthearted and or sarcastic, and straight to the point / aggressive. I'd like to see more options as the game goes on, but I do believe we'll still get our questioning as well as class and background options for the dialogue wheel. But it looks good. So yeah, we're gonna do a big jump because I don't really have much else to say on that part, so we're gonna go straight to what we see after they exit the Alluvian and see in the distance the ritual being performed. So what we see in the distance is these pillars with the god statues. It is easy to miss, but there is two of each, actually. There's the large ones and smaller ones under them that are closer to the ritual that's being performed. I want to point out that they are not in the same order as the ones in the previous trailers, which is curious. So that might mess with some people's theories about which god equates to which head. Also, because of these god statues, this does look like the location we saw in the previous teaser trailer. So I reckon we'll be back here later with the full team to pull a final battle with a big dragon involved, lots of darkspawn, all that. But I have a suspicion that's going to be a few years later in the story. I have a feeling this story is going to take place over the course of a few years. I don't know that, I just have a feeling. Each of the heads is lighting up where their symbols are, and light beams up from them. So what I think is happening is Solas is drawing power from them for the ritual. Hence why earlier Nev mentions, I would expect this from at least a team of 6 mages to do this. And you're saying he's doing it alone? It's like, yeah, he's a god. So I'm thinking, maybe he doesn't have that much power. Maybe he is using this key, this knife, to draw power from the gods who are still trapped. Kinda like in Baldur's Gate, spoiler, how the Emperor is stealing power from the Githyanki prince, I forget his name, kinda like how he's using him as like a battery. It kind of feels like that. It looks like they're individually powering up, one by one, so we can infer that this means that the ritual will be complete once all the heads light up. You can see the beams of light, they're going in trajectories, and it makes sense visually, but I can't verbalize it, so it'll be on screen, I hope. I also want to point out how I was kind of right about the artwork on my knife video. It does look really similar, and I'll have some comparing images on screen too, don't forget that me. So in regards to the meeting of Varric and Solas, I want to say it's incredibly telling that Solas stops what he's doing to turn around and just talk to Varric. If this was a Solas who was too far gone, far beyond reason, he would have killed him on sight. That would be the most pragmatic, logical thing to do in this situation, and he is definitely capable of it. Additionally, he's justifying his actions to Varric. Like, he doesn't need to do that, so in some way he's also justifying it to himself. There's a conversation later on that I've managed to subtitle because it's very hard to hear, but I have managed to get it, but it's also very telling what Varric says in that conversation. I'll have it up in a bit. It isn't until Varric aims Bianca at him that Solas takes the threat seriously. And even then he doesn't kill Varric, he destroys Bianca. There's several things to take away from this. One, he still doesn't kill Varric, he just disarms him. He still cares about Varric, he doesn't kill him. That's a lot. And two, Solas just destroyed Varric's most treasured possession, a symbol of his tragedy, his love for a woman he'll never have. In some ways it's a symbol of his hope, of finding some kind of happiness in life. It just reminds me of this conversation.
Once, in the Fade, I saw the memory of a man who lived alone on an island. Most of his tribe had fallen to beasts or disease. His wife had died in childbirth. He was the only one left. He could have struck out on his own, to find a new land, a new people. But he stayed. He spent every day catching fish in a little boat. Every night drinking fermented fruit juice and watching the stars.
I can think of worse lives.
How can you be happy surrendering? Knowing it'll all end with you? How can you not fight?
I suppose it depends on the quality of the fermented fruit juice.
So it seems.
There are tens of thousands of us living up here in the sunlight now, and it's not that bad. Life goes on. It's just different than it used to be.
And you have no concept of what that difference cost you.
Oh, I know what it didn't cost me. I'm still here, even after all those tigers fell.
You truly are content to sit in the sun, never wondering what you could have been, never fighting back.
You've got it all wrong, Chuckles. This is fighting back.
How does passively accepting your fate constitute a fight?
In that story of yours, the fisherman watching the stars dying alone, You thought he gave up, right?
Yes?
But he went on living. He lost everyone, but he still got up every morning. He made a life, even if it was alone. That's the world. Everything you build, it tears down. Everything you've got, it takes. And it's gone forever. The only choices you get are to lie down and die or keep going. He kept going. That's as close to beating the world as anyone gets.
Well said. Perhaps I was mistaken.
Varric is a man struggling with a lot of things. He's always writing stories, trying to help people. He wants to bring good into the world, to live a good life despite how bad things are and how much he himself has endured. And he has endured a lot. The crossbow, in many ways, was the one thing that was good to him. It's the love he's allowed to possess for this married woman called Bianca, who made this weapon, the only one of its kind, and it's the only thing that nobody can take away from him. And yet, Solas just destroyed it, knowing what it meant to him. And that is just the true nature of Solas in this moment. He radiates pessimism, fatalism. It is contagious in a way, or something he inflicts. And this is the moment where he goes, you know what, no, that's enough, for the first time to someone he actually cares about. And as far as I remember, he's never actually harmed someone he likes before in the series. It's always just been talk. He's just a snarky guy. But now, so very close to victory, to the end, it doesn't matter. I also want to add in this callback to something Solas says, interesting enough.
I suppose I'm just tired of fighting. What do you mean you're tired of fighting? Fighting what?
Did you think I honed my magical skills to impress spirits? I have joined my share of causes, but when I offered lessons learned in the Fade, I was derided by my enemies, and sometimes by my allies. Liar, fool, madman. There are endless ways to say someone isn't worth listening to. Over time, it grinds away.
That's when you should lean on your friends.
Apologies, Inquisitor. I have learned not to do that.
I feel like this is Solas being hit with trauma. Because clearly in the past, he's been second guessed. He's been told he's a liar, a fool, a madman. His trigger point is being told he's wrong. And yes, Solas means pride. And he certainly has a lot of arrogance. But I feel it's important in these moments to think of why a character takes the action that they do. Solas does not want to kill his friend. But he's second guessing himself because someone he called friend is telling him to stop. Telling him basically that his arguments are worthless, his plans are insane, that he's a fool for doing this. Him taking his anger out in this moment on Bianca is him taking out the anger he feels for every time this has happened before, and apparently keeps happening. He destroys his own relationships time and time again because he feels he is right and everyone else is wrong. And that's just a lot of inner conflict. It's just very well written. I want to say, this is not me excusing Solas and his actions, but I think it's certainly sympathetic. Having looked into his extra dialogue. Like I said, it's just really good writing. I think the gut punch of this isn't just the destruction of Bianca, but Solas's response to what Varric said.
People are dying right now. You need to listen. Please.
People are always dying. It is what they do.
So next I want to quickly address the party members and the number of them that comes along with you. It varies. While you do have 2 at a time, there are several points in this reveal where you go from 1 companion to 2 to 3, back to 2, then 1 again. So I imagine this will continue later in the game as well. It's just out and about in the world you can elect to bring 2 people with you. But major quests might have several companions come along and go off to do their own thing during quests. Like how they've kind of done that here, so let's hope that continues. Then while Rook and Harding go to knock down the pillar, we hear a conversation between Varric and Solas, which I mentioned before. It's really hard to hear, I had to listen a good few times, but I've managed to decipher what they've said eventually, so here's some subtitles added to what is being said. If you agree with them, awesome. It's nice we agree. If you don't, put down in the comments what you think is being said. You know, I would love to know an alternative, but I think this is accurate. So basically, no, Solas can't answer that question. He evades, as he always does. Next, I want to point out the destruction of the god statues, which I think is very important in this scene. We see two of them get destroyed, Moonhead and Circlehead. The statue between it does not get destroyed on screen. We only see it fall and have a bit of a crack. Immediately after this, Solas turns round, and behind him a rift opens up. And who walks out? Moonhead and Circlehead. In the flesh, two of the elven gods are back. I surmise that the elven gods were imprisoned via these god statues in some way, since the two that were released are the two statues that were destroyed. The rift opened, and the pair even came out in the same positions that the statues were in, Moonhead to the left, Circlehead to the right. There's also the matter of Solas's reaction to this. I just want to say I personally went for this scene going from bad Dreadwolf to oh no, poor Dreadwolf so fast. Like that switch was just instantaneous the moment things were going bad for him. Solas, the moment he realises that those two gods are behind him coming out, was just such a shift in tone. Obviously the music starts blaring and everything is like, oh shit. Before we were looking up at Solas. He was this intimidating figure that takes up most of the screen, and he's shot from below. And the moment the gods turn up, it's shot from above, and he's so much smaller compared to them. Like, he gets overshadowed by them significantly. It's just some really nice framing in that scene. It really emphasizes the moment, on top of the music. Absolutely top notch. I just wanted to point that out because it's just really cool detail. There's so many ways they could have done that, and I think they just did it chef kiss perfect. Also, Solas is crying here if you hadn't noticed. You see a glimmer of light and you can just see tears going down his cheeks, and it's like, oh shit, this man is working through some extreme emotions. His plan failed, and two of the gods he imprisoned thousands of years ago are coming out in front of him. Poor Solas. So this is where the reveal ends. Solas standing before these gods are heroes behind him. Now, I want to take some time to air out some questions and thoughts. I wonder if the gods know Solas tricked and trapped them, or if he successfully tricked them hard enough that they don't know he's the one who did it. I don't know if that's possible, but I like the idea of they come out and they're like, Fen'Harel, it's you! That they're not gonna... Maybe not quite as eccentric as that, but something along those lines, a lot more serious toned. Other questions would be, have they been aware this entire time? Or is it like being going to a dreamless sleep? Are they even still intelligent, at least since at least one of them looks corrupted somehow? We can actually see Circlehead's face here, I want to point out. And it's literally I think it's 1 or 2 frames, and he looks actually normal. It's just his clothing that makes him look a bit odd. But Moonhead to the left, she looks absolutely buggered. She's got some tentacles going on, some elongated limbs. Her neck is going all the way up. The moon head is a moon head. And it looks like she's got a sort of mask on instead of a face. So to touch on this, my beliefs are that Moonhead is Andruil. Because of Andruil's association. She is the sister of the moon. In some early on concept art we see Moonhead with a spear. Andruil's known to carry a spear. And there's some artwork in the Missing with a hawk behind Moonhead. Well, a bird that looks like a hawk. She's holding a lighter-haired female god who is, I don't know the shape. the S shape, kind of. The double S shape headdress symbol. I believe the lighter-haired one is Gillenan because Gillenan in this codex entry is described to have white hair specifically. With the spear and the moon symbology and the hawk behind her, that's just gotta be Andruil. I can't see it otherwise. So that's my theory, that's my reasoning. So why she looks the way she does, there's the codex entry that talks about how Andruil, she got bored of hunting regular things and decided to go into the void to go hunt the Forgotten Ones and otherworldly creatures. And she came back with a plague and insanity. And a lot of people believe this is the Blight. I don't think it was the Blight. I think it was a proto-Blight. I think it was a pre-Blight Blight, if that makes sense. It's something that Andruil found, brought back. It was a bit dodgy, they messed around with it, and then it became the Blight, is my theory. And the reason that Moonhead, Andruil, looks the way that she does is because of Gillenan's meddling and experimentation with monsters and whatnot. This is also a big theory, but I believe it's either to find a way to cure this proto-Blight, or to utilise what she found in something that would become the Blight, would become this physical corruption. And this is the end result. Whether or not she still has her mind is unclear. I'm curious because I do think Gillenan has played a part in her corruption. Just with Gillenan's experimentation and whatnot. Featured most especially in Tevinter Knight's Horror of Hormak, which tells us directly she was making monsters. She was mixing and matching different species of things to create new creatures. So we know that's a thing, and maybe that's what she did to Andruil. Now, the figure on the right, I've not actually got any solid clue on who that is, but I want to say it's Dirthamen, because he does have a strong connection with Gillenan as well. Plus, the Temple of Dirthamen was featured in Inquisition, so I think this one looks male. So I'm going to assume it's Dirthamen since he's the only male god really, other than Falon'Din I suppose, that has been featured, but I think it would more likely, out of the two of them, be Dirthamen. So that is my guess. Not much else to say on it, but you can see his face, which is super interesting. He looks completely uncorrupted to me. Now, what will happen the moment after this scene ended in the reveal? I think Solas is going to bolt. He's a bolter at the first sign of a fight he can't win. It's just part of his nature. In fact, I believe in Inquisition he mentioned that often, like, yeah, I wouldn't be this loud in front of enemies, I was gonna flee, blah blah blah. He said many things like that throughout the game, like, he pretty much tells you if he spots trouble he can't handle, he bolts. So yeah, Solas would flee, I imagine. Whether or not he can, I don't know. Like, will he have time to get away? Are the gods actually still powerful? Or will they be weak like he was when he first woke up? Will they speak, actually? Will the gods try to kill him, if they do know and remember what he did? Or will he try and talk his way out of this situation? We know Solas still has the knife. We know Rook will get this knife as this iconic item, like the Inquisitor with the anchor. So will Solas be killed here and we pick up the knife? Will he drop it as he runs? Or will he ally with us in this turn of events for the sake of the enemy of my enemy? Since he seemed to be entertaining Varric's attempts to change his mind? Or will Solas pretend to be killed here, or be gravely injured and assumed dead by the gods? and then escape after. I personally want it to be that Solas allies with us and acts as a sort of advisor, who may or may not turn on us later once the gods are dealt with, depending on the choices from this game as well as the previous game, with perhaps some influence from Inquisitors, redeem or stop at all costs at the end of Trespasser. This is primarily motivated by my love for Solas's character and the fact that I want to have a scene with Inky and Solas again. I think that'd be really interesting regardless of the relationship your Inquisitor had with him. It'd just be a really interesting dynamic to see play out in the background as you go through the story. Kind of like, well, the general feel of the gameplay for the Veilguard, it reminds me a lot of God of War. At least in God of War Ragnarok, I remember you could go to your home base and you would just hear the other characters having conversations in their own time, and you could listen in and overhear their conversations, but you weren't really a part of it. And I think that'd be a really cool thing for them to implement, especially if Solas is just there, kind of staying low. However, I think it's probably more likely that Solas is going to try and escape and continue to do his thing in the shadows once more. Or he'll just be killed right here. I'm holding out a lot of hope that we'll see the big wolf, if you know what I mean, because it's been teased somewhat previously. And I think the least likely thing to happen is they kill Solas off right away. I feel like they would have showed that if it was going to happen. I don't think they would have cut it off there and then we pick up in another reveal later on Solas is dead. I don't think they would do that. It just doesn't seem correct. So I'm holding on to, personally, Solas becomes a reluctant advisor on this new threat that arises, and he could possibly turn on you based on your choices throughout the game, whether or not he learns to trust again. With a bonus scene with Inquisitor, I need that. That's my hope, at least. So I don't have much else to say about the gameplay reveal, at least not for now. I actually have run out of time because I'm going away to the Void until later on in the month. But I will be keeping an eye on things, so basically this is my last video until I'm back. Besides that, what do you think of the reveal? What got you excited? What do you think will become of Solas? How do you think we're gonna get the knife? What do you think they're gonna do with Inquisitor since they're customizable from the very start of the game? How do you think that'll play out? Pop your answers down below. I swear I do read the comments, I'm just getting a lot of them lately. But I really do love hearing what you guys think, so yep. Thank you so much for watching, have a great day.